these were not not that we've come from particularly exciting earnings, but these were not very exciting earnings either from Etsy. I thought it was pretty run of the mill. So they missed on the bottom line by 3 cents. They reported 77 cents instead of the expectations of 80. Heavy shoulder shrug there, I guess. Surprised on the revenue front, they posted 807 million instead of the 751 million expected. So this was 13% growth year on year for them. That's not too bad, actually. It's probably better than you would have expected coming into the Christmas period. Adjusted EBITDA was up 4%, but the margin actually fell back to 28.1%. So metrics-wise for the business, gross merchandise sales fell 4%, and both active sellers and buyers fell by 1%. So this comes with the territory, I think. Etsy has recently increased its take rate, and it's only natural to see some of those people fall off from that. But outside of that, Etsy actually looks like it's holding up really well. They guided for 600 to 640 million in revenue. Wall Street wanted 621 million, so that's in the middle. They don't actually guide for EPS, so nothing to see there. For the full year, Etsy actually lost its earnings multiple because it had reported a goodwill impairment last quarter. It's about $1 billion. And this is the same issue that Teladoc has had, essentially overpaying for acquisitions. But you can safely sub that back in if you want to regenerate a PE. I think you'll find it'll be in the 50s. If the guidance is correct and all things remain equal, we'll be looking at about a 36x multiple, which is still pretty expensive, Steve, for this kind of growth. What do you think of that? Is that something that interests you?
Is it? I kind of think it is. 18% revenue growth, 36 times earnings. That bit sounds all right, but then the margin got kind of eaten away, right? Which is why we had a beat at the top and a miss at the bottom, which normally says to me something like inflation, that you had more people paying more stuff and then it all got used up in costs because everything you paid for was more expensive too. The billion acquisition, that was stuff like including but not limited to Depop and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and Reverb, I think it was all, they kind of wrote them down as a collective, but which is a shame really, because they only had about 1.3 or 1.4 billion on of goodwill on the balance sheet, so they're pretty much saying it's all rubbish. So I don't know what they've acquired there or what they haven't acquired or how bad it really is, but they don't seem to value it at all.
No, that's, I guess, sort of interesting. I suppose there's something to be had for kind of rolling up various versions of either second-hand or handmade or whatever, online sort of peer-to-peer selling, I guess, that's not Amazon, because people who shop on there, I think, probably generally don't like Amazon, and I imagine sellers don't like Amazon very much either, to be honest, because they do quite well out of them.
Yeah, so I used to work in this sector, and I can tell you that we were not massive fans of Amazon at the time, mainly because of all the kind of like checks and balances that they put on you. They really do try and like run your life. Like you have like a set amount of time to even respond to people because they don't want people to associate your not a stellar customer service with their absolutely stellar customer service. So there are hundreds of things, and they'll just message you and say, yeah, the wardrobe arrived damaged. We've given the customer back all of the money. And you're like, what? We can just give him a new panel. Do you know what I mean? Like we could just he's only round the corner. We could have dropped it off. And they're like, but that's it. You just don't get a choice. And they're like, and if you say, well, that's not fair. We just have a panel. We could drop it off. And they say, well, you should just pop that into your budget as your problem and not ours. It's a cost of doing business with Amazon. But that's fine, I guess. And I wonder if Etsy's got that kind of. Has it got that kind of sting with its customers that Amazon does? I mean, when you're an Amazon customer, if you stopped selling on Amazon, you're pretty much tearing up half of your business in a day, I would assume. So with Etsy, I wonder if it's quite the same. I suppose some of these people are. I suppose it is the largest curated marketplace of handmade goods, although not everything on there is specifically in that kind of niche. But they are trying to make it a little bit more like that. I don't know of any real competition, Steve. I don't know. I mean, I know there's Amazon Handmade, but again, we're going back down all channels there. I think it's doing okay, actually. I think it's held up a lot better than I thought it would, and I think it's just one of those things that, again, if I was a holder of it, I don't know if I'd be in a rush to buy anymore, but I'd be happy to just sit on it for now.
Are you not a holder?
Well, yes, but I'm only in the money incentive. I don't really class that as a real thing.
No, fair enough. I couldn't remember whether and where you were. It's a weird one, Etsy. It's a business model I quite like. You just sort of sit there taking a cut off other people's money, which is great. these kind of platform businesses, like other examples that we talk about on here, include stuff like Airbnb, include Rightmove, include Amazon to an extent. There's something to like about that, and they, I think, have a strongish brand in terms of the handmade stuff. If you were looking for something genuinely handmade, you'd go and look at Etsy. I sort of find them annoying because I find them to be full of spreadsheets, to be honest, which, yeah, okay, people did make them themselves, but that's not, to my mind, what's meant by handmade particularly. It's not the kind of thing I kind of associate with them, which is, I think, is probably the main reason I don't own this stock, and I don't really get the space either very well. I probably ought to shop on there more often, to be honest, when I'm looking for presents and stuff, but I don't, and therefore I've historically wondered whether it's a fad. I think probably Etsy itself is quite powerful, and maybe the stuff it's bought perhaps isn't, which I suppose squares with this idea that it's being written down in quite a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think they've been trying to grow some new arms, grow some new legs to their business, and I think they've found very quickly that these companies are just not going to be new Etsy's, and I think that's why they've been marked down. I've never used any of the products in question, so I don't know if they're good purchases or not, but I mean, Etsy blatantly think they're not.
Yeah, Depop's an interesting one. All I see, I've never been on Depop. My wife, I think, shops on there, or did shop on there for some kind of, I think, second-hand maternity gear for when that was something that we needed. And she didn't have this experience, but all we saw on kind of social media was people who had kind of messaged sellers being like, "Where's my dress coming?" And sellers who write back and like, "It's Friday afternoon, sod off and leave me alone."
Yeah.
So it's very much not the Amazon way of customer service, from what I can see of it.
Yeah, it's a bit like, I don't know if you've ever tried to sell anything on Gumtree or Facebook, and you just end up with like just the most annoying people in the world. You'll put something on for like £5, and someone will message you and say £4, and you're like, oh, for God's sake, it's a £5. Do you know what I mean? If you come around, you can have it. It's just
yeah. Facebook Marketplace is interesting. We got quite a bit of stuff on there, not handmade stuff, I would point out. So there's a decent scope for selling stuff that isn't that there. But I'm impressed that Etsy's holding up fairly well. Etsy with a sort of, I guess, small e, so Etsy the platform rather than Etsy the business here. What did the stock do, by the way, on the news? Did you say that? Yeah,
it was up about 6% on the news, which was, I was a bit worried about it really, because I know we're in a kind of earnings kind of market, and even though it only fell just short, and usually just short's enough to fall 50%, so I thought it might do a bit worse than it did. I think it was up 6%. It's given all of that back already, Steve. It's already much cheaper than it was at the beginning of the earnings. But I don't think there was anything particularly special in that earnings to make it go up 6% either. So fair play to me. I think it should have stayed exactly flat.